I was just paying some bills like I always do. I wasn't looking for anything. But then I saw a payment from our shared account, $1,500 sent on Venmo. The note said, "For you and Luna Sparkling Heart." My heart dropped. My name isn't Luna, and I haven't received any money like that. I stared at the screen for a long time. I checked again to make sure it wasn't a mistake, but it was real. I clicked through our transaction history and found more. There were other payments, smaller ones, over the past few months. $800 here, $1,200 there. It added up to more than $6,000. That name, Luna, was stuck in my mind. I remembered it from years ago. Luna was the dog my husband had with his ex-girlfriend. Her name is Kendra. I suddenly felt cold. I felt sick. Was he sending money to Kendra? Why? I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was something else. Maybe I was wrong. But deep down, I knew something was off. I could feel it in my gut. I waited for him to come home. I tried to act normal. I asked how his day was. He smiled and said it was fine. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him right then and there, but I stayed quiet. Later that night, when he was asleep, I went back to the bank app. I checked every detail. I looked up the payment notes. One said, "You always have my back." Another said, "Just until things get better." Who was he talking to? Who needed his help so badly that he was hiding it from? I felt hurt. Not just because of the money, but because he didn't tell me. We were supposed to be a team. We shared everything, or at least I thought we did. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My mind was racing. Was he cheating? Was this just about money? Or was it more? In the morning, I looked at him as he made coffee like nothing had happened. I smiled back, but inside I felt something had changed. A crack had opened between us, and I didn't know if it could be closed. I knew one thing for sure. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to stop until I got them. After finding the second account, I stayed calm. Curiosity pushed me forward, and I kept searching. I opened our banking history again, looking deeper this time. As I scrolled, small patterns began to show up, payments moving out on random dates, never matching what I remembered discussing. The names didn't seem familiar at first, but then one name kept appearing, Kendra. I recognized her right away. My husband never spoke kindly about her. In the past, he mentioned someone with bad habits, someone who never planned ahead. He said dealing with her had been draining. Now, I saw her name linked to several transfers. The amounts weren't small. They grew larger with each month. It wasn't just a one-time favor. I sat there for a long moment. The numbers, names, and notes swirled in my head. Quietly, I wrote everything down. I needed a clear picture. Screenshots, printouts, dates. Every single detail saved. No reaction yet, just observation. When he came home, I kept my voice steady. We talked like usual. Then I brought it up casually. "You've been helping someone?" I asked without emotion. His eyes shifted slightly, just for a second. He answered, saying he lent money to a person who'd hit a rough patch. I didn't mention the name. I wanted to see if he would. He didn't. He explained it like it was no big deal. "Just support for a friend," he said. I smiled softly, like I accepted that answer. But in my mind, I saw everything clearly. I didn't believe him, and I didn't press further. That moment wasn't for fighting. It was for listening. After that, I acted like everything was fine. I made dinner. I sat beside him, quiet, thinking. But something inside me was different. I was watching him closely now, noticing little things I'd ignored before. How he kept his phone near him all the time. How he'd step outside to take calls. How often he claimed to be working late. Each action became a piece of something larger. I didn't accuse. I didn't question again. I needed more than a guess. I needed to be sure, without a doubt. So, I went back to gathering. I checked emails, notifications, even old receipts. Every document told a story, a private one I wasn't part of. But soon I would know all of it. He thought I'd forget, that I wouldn't notice, that it wouldn't matter. He was wrong. I waited a few days before doing anything more. I didn't want to act without thinking. I needed to be sure before taking the next step. One evening, after he left for the gym, I made a new account online with a fake name. I didn't use any photo or personal information. I used it to message Kendra. I didn't say who I really was. I just said I'd heard she was getting help from someone kind and asked if it was true. At first, she didn't reply. I waited. A few hours later, I saw her name pop up with a new message. She replied with a long note. She said she had been going through hard times and was lucky to have someone helping her. She said she didn't know how she would have made it without him. I asked who was helping her. She replied without hesitation. She said his full name. My husband. She said he'd been covering her rent while she searched for a job and that she was thankful every month. Then she added something else. She said it was sweet how he still looked out for her the way he used to when they were together. That line stayed with me. It didn't sound like just help. It felt like something deeper. I didn't move for a moment. My hands felt cold. My chest felt heavy. But I didn't stop. I took pictures of the messages, all of them. I saved the screen. I recorded everything she said. I didn't answer her again. I closed the app and sat in silence. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just a loan or a favor. It wasn't something small. This was different. He had kept this part of his life hidden. He had chosen to give his attention and support to someone he once claimed was part of the past. But she wasn't in the past at all. She was still there. Quietly, secretly, always there. I thought about every word he had told me. I thought about the way he brushed it off like it was nothing. I thought about how he looked at me and smiled like everything was normal. It hurt more than I expected. Not because of the money, not even because of her, but because he had made me feel like I was imagining things when I wasn't. I sat there in the dark, still and quiet. I let the sadness wash over me for a while. Then slowly, something else came in. A feeling of focus. I wasn't going to fall apart. I wasn't going to beg or cry. I had proof now. Real proof. And I knew I had to be careful with what came next. I closed the apps, turned off the light, and lay down. My heart ached, but my thoughts were clear. This wasn't over. Not yet. I didn't say anything to him after reading Kendra's messages. I wanted to, but I stopped myself. Talking too soon could ruin everything. I needed to think smart, not fast. The next day, I started saving everything. I downloaded files from the bank. I printed out payments and wrote down dates. I kept the pictures of the messages. I even made a folder on a hidden drive where I stored every file. I made sure to keep it all safe. I wanted a full record, not just pieces. After a few days of planning, I searched online for legal help. I found a lawyer nearby and made an appointment. I told no one. I didn't want any hint of my plan to slip out. The meeting was quiet and short. I explained the situation, and the lawyer listened carefully. After I finished, she gave me one piece of advice. Don't say anything yet. She said to stay calm, keep collecting proof, and watch. I nodded. It made sense. When I came home that evening, I didn't ask questions or act upset. I told him I was tired from work and needed space. I moved my things into the guest room and said I wasn't sleeping well. He didn't question me much. He just said okay and walked away. From that point on, I kept my face calm and my voice steady. But inside, I was paying attention to everything. I noticed how often he stepped outside to take calls. I watched how he looked down at his phone and smiled, never telling me why. He kept using his hidden account. I saw new payments go through. I wrote each one down with the time and note. He never saw me watching. He never guessed what I knew. I didn't speak about it, but I felt the truth growing stronger each day. The lies were piling up right in front of me, and he was still pretending everything was fine. I went to work, came home, made dinner, and kept quiet. He didn't notice the change in me. Every night, I stayed in the other room. I stared at the ceiling and planned my next move. I thought about what I needed, what steps were left. The lawyer told me not to act until everything was in place. So I waited. I stayed patient. I checked old records, emails, and even photos. I remembered things he said before and matched them with what I saw now. The more I looked, the more I found. Every detail mattered. He was living like nothing had changed. Still calling her. Still sending money. Still hiding it. I didn't stop him. I let him think I knew nothing. That was the best part. He had no idea. I knew my silence was stronger than any fight. I just had to wait for the right moment. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready. I picked a quiet Friday to tell him I needed a break. I said I was going to stay with my sister for a few days. He nodded and said to take my time. He didn't ask many questions. I packed a small bag, smiled like everything was fine, and drove off. Instead of heading out of town, I circled the block and parked behind a row of tall bushes where our house wasn't in view. From there, I could still see part of the driveway. I turned off the engine, rolled the window down a little, and waited. I had my phone with me, and the doorbell camera app was open. I kept refreshing the screen, watching the front porch. The hours passed slowly. Cars drove by. People walked their dogs. But nothing happened. Then the sky started to darken, and streetlights came on. A car turned into the driveway. It was one I had never seen in person, but I knew who it belonged to. She stepped out without hesitation. It was her. She walked to the front door like she had done it before. She didn't pause, didn't look around, just rang the bell. The door opened. He was there, wearing a sweatshirt and jeans. He smiled. His voice came through the speaker. He said, "You know this place is yours if you ever need it." He didn't sound forced. His tone was gentle, like he meant every word. She stepped inside and the door closed. The porch light stayed on, but everything else went quiet. I stared at the screen, not blinking. My hands were still. I didn't speak. I just sat in the driver's seat with the phone on my lap and my thoughts racing. The house in front of me looked the same as always, but it didn't feel the same. That sentence kept repeating in my head. It was like he handed her the key to my life without a second thought. Not just a visit. Not just help. He gave her something that didn't belong to her. I stayed in the car all night. I didn't turn the engine on again. I sat under a blanket, kept the phone beside me, and watched the camera until it turned black. No one came out. No lights turned off. Nothing moved. Inside the house, he probably felt safe, relaxed, comfortable. He had no idea I was nearby. No idea I was watching. He thought I was hours away with my sister, unaware. Morning came slowly. The sky changed from deep blue to soft gray. Birds chirped. The street began to wake up. I stayed where I was. I didn't need to see anything else. That one moment had shown me the truth. Nothing left to guess. No stories left to believe. I had heard enough. My body felt cold, but my thoughts were steady. What came next would take time. I knew that, but I wasn't unsure anymore. I had seen what I needed to see, and that was enough. The next morning, I woke up early. The sky was still gray, and the street was quiet. I sat for a while, thinking about everything that had happened. I knew it was time. I had waited long enough. I opened my phone and looked at the number my lawyer gave me. It was for a locksmith. I called without hesitating. A calm voice answered. I told him I needed the locks changed that morning. He asked for the address and said he could come in 1 hour. I thanked him, hung up, and drove straight home. The drive was short, but my mind was full. No fear, just focus. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked calm. Nothing was broken. Nothing looked different, but everything had changed. I unlocked the front door, walked inside, and started packing. I went room by room, opening drawers, closets, and shelves. I took only his things, nothing more. I folded his shirts, stacked his jeans, and wrapped small items in towels. I put everything into boxes and wrote clear labels. One for clothes, one for shoes, one for tools, one for bathroom items. I didn't rush, but I didn't stop either. Every corner of the house where he had something, I cleared. I left the boxes in the garage. I didn't want to throw anything out. I just wanted it out of the home that was mine. The one he turned into something else without telling me. The locksmith arrived right on time. He was kind and didn't ask questions. He changed the front and back door locks. I paid him, thanked him, and watched him leave. When he drove away, I stood at the door with new keys in my hand. It felt quiet. It felt final. I took a deep breath and sat down for a few minutes. My hands rested on my lap. My heart was steady. I picked up my phone and typed a message. It didn't need to be long. I wrote, "Kendra's place is now your place. Good luck, Romeo." I read it twice. Then I hit send. After that, I opened every app and blocked his number. I blocked his email. I blocked his social media accounts. One by one, I removed every way he could contact me. I didn't want an explanation. I didn't want more lies. I wanted peace. I placed the phone on the table and looked around. The house felt empty, but not in a bad way. It felt clean, free. There were no more secrets sitting in the corners. No more silence hiding the truth. The sun started to shine through the windows. Light hit the floor and made small patterns on the wall. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I made tea and sat by the window. Outside, people walked their dogs. Kids rode bikes. Birds flew past the trees. Everything looked normal, but I felt different. I had done something hard, something that took strength. I didn't wait for his reply. I knew it wouldn't matter. Words couldn't change what he had done. He made his choices. I made mine. From now on, the door would stay closed to anyone who didn't treat it like home. Evening came, and I stayed upstairs. The house was still. No music, no TV, no sound at all. I kept the lights low. My phone was near me. I had already made the call earlier, letting the police know what might happen. I gave them the address and explained the situation. They told me to call again if I needed help. A little after sunset, I heard a car pull up. I didn't look right away. Then came the first knock. It was loud. Then another. Then he started yelling my name. I stood behind the curtain in the upstairs room, looking down at the front porch. He looked confused, then angry. He tried the door, but it didn't move. He pulled the handle again and again, like it might suddenly open. When that didn't work, he stepped back and shouted louder. He wanted answers. He kept calling my name, over and over. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just watched. He started pacing in front of the door, shaking his head. He couldn't believe what was happening. He had no key, no way in. Then he kicked the bottom of the door and shouted again, louder than before. I picked up my phone and made the second call. I told the officer he was there. They said someone was already on the way. Minutes passed. He kept yelling. Some neighbors peeked out of their windows, but no one came outside. Then the flashing lights appeared down the road. 2 officers stepped out of their car and walked toward the house. They stayed calm and asked him to step away from the door. He turned to them, upset and waving his hand. I couldn't hear every word, but I saw his face clearly. He pointed toward the house and tried to explain. The officers stayed quiet, letting him talk. Then one of them looked up at the window. I opened it slowly and said I was fine. They nodded and kept things peaceful. He looked up and saw me. His face changed. His voice was full of anger and shock. He asked how I could do this. How I could throw everything away. Then he shouted, "You're ending a marriage over money?" I didn't yell back. I didn't cry. I looked down and said, "No, I'm ending it because of lies." He stopped. Just stood there for a moment, staring at me. Then the officers asked him to leave the property. He didn't argue. He walked back to his car, slowly, without looking back. The flashing lights faded as the car pulled away. I closed the window and sat down on the floor. The house was quiet again. This time it felt different, peaceful, like something heavy had finally been lifted. There was nothing left to explain, nothing more to say. A few quiet days went by. I stayed at home, kept things simple, and focused on small tasks. One morning, while checking my phone, I opened an app without thinking much. That's when I saw her post. Kendra had shared a short message on her story. It said, "Some people can't handle the past and ruin what's not theirs." There were no names, no pictures, just plain text over a soft background. But the meaning was clear. It didn't need names. I took a screenshot and saved it. I didn't feel upset. It didn't surprise me. Instead, I let out a short laugh. She really believed she had something to say. She thought she was above it all. Maybe she believed she had already taken my place. Later that day, a close friend came to visit. She sat with me, asked how I was holding up. I shared the post with her. She read it, shook her head, and said, "Want me to try something?" I nodded. She picked up her phone and used a different account. A friendly message was sent to Kendra. Nothing obvious, just a soft comment, pretending to understand her side. She wrote as someone curious and kind. The response didn't take long. Kendra replied with a long message. She explained how she thought things between me and my husband were finished already. She claimed he had told her that we were just living under the same roof for money reasons. She even said I was holding on to something that wasn't real anymore. I sat beside my friend, reading each word. Calm, steady, focused. I didn't need to reply. I just saved everything. Message after message. I made sure every detail was captured clearly. Later that night, I opened my laptop and placed the screenshots in the folder I'd been building. It already had documents, statements, copies of past messages. Now this part was added too. I attached the new files and sent them to my lawyer. Her reply came quickly. She said the conversation helped show the pattern. Every step Kendra described matched the actions we already knew. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the screen. The folder now told the full story, beginning to end. A clear picture. No guessing anymore. Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees. Inside, the air felt still and settled. I closed the computer, placed my phone on the table, and poured myself a warm drink. They could say what they wanted. Make posts. Create stories. None of it changed what had been done. The choices were already made. The truth didn't need noise. It stood strong on its own. The papers were ready. I met with my lawyer again, and we filed everything. The process had started. It felt serious now, but not scary. Just real. Every detail I had saved was handed over. Messages, pictures, notes, and all the proof of the money he had sent behind my back. The forms were filled with facts. My lawyer was careful with every sentence. She added every payment he had made to the woman he once claimed he barely spoke to anymore. The judge needed to see the full picture, so nothing was left out. Even small transfers were counted. We went to court soon after. I wore something simple. I stayed calm. He came too, sitting on the other side of the room. He looked nervous, but tried to act confident. He kept glancing at me, but I didn't look back. The judge listened to both sides. My lawyer explained how money had been moved without my knowledge, how it was hidden, and how he used our shared income to help someone else without telling me. It wasn't just about trust. It was about what was right and wrong. His side tried to say the payments weren't a big deal. They called it helping a friend, but the facts were clear. The amounts, the messages, the timing, none of it looked innocent. The judge didn't ask many questions. He read the files and nodded slowly. Then he gave his answer. He ruled in my favor. The house stayed in my name. Most of the things we owned together were now mine. I didn't ask for everything, just what was fair. I didn't want to take more than I needed, but I also wouldn't let him walk away like nothing had happened. He left the court without speaking to me. I watched him walk out, shoulders low, head down. There was no yelling, no scene. Just the quiet end of something that had already broken long before. Later, someone told me he had moved in with her. It didn't shock me. It made sense. He had already spent time and money there, so going to her place was easy. But just 2 months passed before I heard they were no longer together. They didn't fight in court. They didn't have lawyers. But even without all that, they still didn't last. I didn't feel sorry for him. I didn't smile either. It just confirmed what I already knew. What's built on lies doesn't stand for long. Back at home, I cleaned out the last box with his name on it and set it aside. I opened the windows and let fresh air come in. I looked around at the space I now controlled. Not just the house, but my time, my peace, my future. There was no going back. Only forward. And forward felt good. Time kept moving. Days felt easier. Mornings were quiet, nights peaceful. I spent more time outside, enjoying simple things, walking through the park, drinking tea on the porch, reading books I'd forgotten I owned. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt safe. Work became smoother. I focused better, smiled more, and felt lighter. Friends started noticing the change. They said I looked rested. I didn't say much, just nodded. Healing doesn't need big words. One afternoon, while sitting at the kitchen table, my phone lit up. A short message appeared. His name was still saved in my contacts. The words said, "I made a mistake. Can we talk?" I didn't reply. There was no anger left in me, just distance. Clear and quiet. The kind of distance that doesn't shrink when someone regrets what they did. I set the phone down, walked to the window, and watched the sky turn soft with evening light. A few weeks later, I traveled to the coast. The air smelled like salt, the waves rolled in gently, and the wind brushed against my face. It felt like everything around me was saying, "You made it through." I took pictures, walked barefoot on the beach, and let the past stay behind. One photo meant more than the others. In it, I stood beside someone who made me feel safe again. He didn't try too hard, didn't talk in circles. He was kind, patient, and clear. We stood side by side, smiling, sunlight shining above the ocean behind us. I posted that picture online. Just one short caption. Some mistakes are better left outside the locked door. No names. No hints. Just the truth. After sharing it, I turned off my phone and kept walking along the shore. I didn't need to know if he saw it. It didn't matter. My story wasn't about him anymore. It was about peace, strength, and choosing better. At home, everything felt quiet in the best way. I looked around my space, knowing every part of it was mine again. Not because I took anything, but because I let go. Some chapters don't need to be reopened. Some people don't need a second chance. And some mistakes, no matter how sorry they sound, belong on the other side of a door that stays shut. I didn't answer his message. I didn't need to. The silence said enough.